Most people go through life never truly knowing where their money disappears to each month. They work hard, earn a decent income, yet somehow find themselves struggling to save or wondering why their bank account feels perpetually empty. But what happens when someone decides to track every single dollar for an extended period? The lessons learned transform not just finances, but entire perspectives on money, spending, and life itself. The shocking reality of invisible spending. When people first start tracking their expenses, the initial discovery hits like a cold splash of water. Those seemingly harmless daily purchases that feel insignificant in the moment reveal themselves as silent budget killers. A coffee here, a quick lunch there, an online subscription forgotten months ago. Each transaction might only be a few dollars, but the cumulative effect tells a completely different story. Research into spending behaviors shows that most individuals underestimate their actual spending by a significant margin. The human brain simply isn't wired to remember every small transaction, especially in an age where contactless payments and one-click purchases make spending feel almost abstract. Money no longer exists as physical cash that visibly depletes from a wallet. Instead, it becomes invisible numbers that shift between accounts with barely a second thought. People who commit to tracking every dollar quickly discover categories of spending they never realized existed. Those who assumed they spent around $150 monthly on dining out often find the real number closer to $300 or even $400. Entertainment subscriptions accumulate like digital clutter, with streaming services, app memberships, and forgotten trials quietly draining accounts month after month. One study found that individuals who tracked their spending for just 30 days automatically reduced their expenses by 3 to 5% without even trying, simply through increased awareness. The discovery extends beyond just categories. Tracking reveals patterns and triggers that operate beneath conscious awareness. Some people realize they spend more when stressed, turning to retail therapy as an emotional coping mechanism. Others notice weekend spending spikes or discover that certain environments trigger impulse purchases. Shopping while hungry leads to grocery bills that balloon beyond necessity. Browsing social media creates comparison anxiety that manifests as unnecessary purchases designed to keep up with perceived standards. The most eye-opening revelation often comes from calculating how small daily expenses translate into yearly totals. That daily $5 coffee habit represents over $1,800 annually. A $15 lunch 4 times weekly adds up to more than $3,000 per year. When people see these numbers laid out clearly, the abstract becomes concrete. Suddenly, those insignificant purchases transform into missed opportunities for substantial savings, debt repayment, or meaningful experiences. The unexpected psychological transformation, beyond the numbers and categories. Tracking every dollar triggers profound psychological shifts that extend far deeper than basic financial awareness. The act of recording each transaction creates a pause, a moment of reflection before money leaves an account. This brief interruption in automatic spending behavior allows rational thinking to compete with impulse and emotion. The psychology of spending reveals that humans operate largely on mental shortcuts and emotional responses when making financial decisions. Credit cards feel painless because the psychological pain of payment arrives later when the bill appears, not in the moment of purchase. Foreign currency feels like play money, making overspending easier while traveling. The present carries more emotional weight than the distant future, which explains why saving for retirement feels less urgent than buying something enjoyable today. Tracking interrupts these automatic patterns. When someone knows they'll need to record and categorize a purchase, the transaction no longer happens on autopilot. The brain engages differently, asking questions that might otherwise remain unasked. Is this purchase necessary or just wanted? Does it align with stated financial goals? What value will it actually provide beyond the momentary satisfaction? This heightened awareness creates what researchers call financial mindfulness. People begin distinguishing between needs and wants with greater clarity. They recognize emotional spending triggers and develop healthier coping mechanisms. Instead of shopping to relieve stress, they might exercise, talk with friends, or engage in hobbies. The dopamine hit that comes from making purchases becomes less appealing when awareness reveals the temporary nature of that satisfaction. The psychological transformation also affects how people perceive their relationship with money itself. Many individuals carry unconscious beliefs about finances inherited from family or absorbed from society. Money might represent security, freedom, status, or even shame and anxiety. Tracking expenses brings these hidden beliefs into the light, allowing conscious examination and potential change. People who track their spending often report an unexpected sense of control and empowerment. Financial anxiety decreases when mystery disappears and clarity emerges. Instead of wondering where money went, they know exactly where it went. This knowledge replaces helplessness with agency. They're no longer passive observers of their financial lives, but active participants making intentional choices. The practice also reshapes the concept of saving from sacrifice to satisfaction. When tracking reveals how much money disappears on purchases that bring minimal lasting value or joy, redirecting those funds toward meaningful goals becomes easier. Saving transforms from painful deprivation into purposeful progress toward things that genuinely matter. The lasting financial freedom it created. The ultimate lessons from tracking every dollar extend far beyond temporary awareness or short-term savings. The practice fundamentally rewires financial habits and creates lasting changes that compound over time into genuine financial freedom and stability. One of the most significant long-term benefits comes from developing the ability to align spending with personal values. When people track their expenses and rate each purchase based on the value or joy it provided, patterns emerge. They discover that expensive restaurant meals with friends bring lasting happiness, while impulse clothing purchases gather dust unworn. Concert tickets create memories, but mindless online shopping creates regret. This clarity allows strategic reallocation of resources toward experiences and items that genuinely enhance life. The data collected through diligent tracking also enables realistic budgeting that actually works. Most budgets fail because they're built on assumptions and wishful thinking rather than accurate information. Someone might budget $200 for groceries, only to discover through tracking that their actual spending consistently hits $350. With real data, budgets become practical roadmaps rather than aspirational fantasies doomed to failure. Tracking also accelerates progress toward major financial goals. When someone sees exactly how much discretionary spending occurs monthly, they can identify opportunities to redirect funds. Perhaps $150 to $200 monthly can shift from low-value spending to debt repayment, emergency fund building, or investment accounts. Over 30 to 40 years, those redirected funds compound into substantial wealth that transforms retirement possibilities or creates financial security. The habit creates a ripple effect into other areas of financial life. People who track spending become more conscious of subscriptions and recurring charges, catching forgotten services and negotiating better rates. They notice bank fees, evaluate insurance policies more carefully, and make more strategic decisions about major purchases. The awareness muscle strengthened through expense tracking extends to all financial decisions. Perhaps most importantly, tracking every dollar builds genuine financial literacy that no amount of theoretical knowledge can replace. Reading about budgeting is useful, but nothing compares to the intimate understanding that comes from actively engaging with personal financial data over months or years. People learn their unique spending patterns, identify their specific triggers, and discover what motivates them personally to save or spend. The confidence that emerges from this knowledge cannot be overstated. Financial decisions that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Questions about whether to make a purchase, take on debt, or pursue a financial goal have clearer answers grounded in real experience, rather than anxiety or guesswork. For many, the practice of tracking every dollar becomes less about the specific numbers and more about the relationship it creates with money. It transforms finances from a source of stress and mystery into a tool for building the life someone actually wants to live. That shift in perspective, maintained over time, creates the foundation for lasting financial health and genuine freedom to make choices aligned with personal values and goals. The journey of tracking every dollar isn't about perfection or rigid deprivation. It's about awareness, intentionality, and the profound peace that comes from truly knowing where money goes and why. That knowledge, once gained, becomes a permanent asset that continues paying dividends long after the initial tracking period ends.